Tonight's speaker, welcome, is Dave Whittaker, who's going to be talking about underground Greenwich. He lives in Maidenstone Hill on the western slopes of Greenwich for the last 15 years, and he's going to be talking about what's under there. So I'm going to hand over to Dave, who's going to be then saying a few words and then sharing his screen and talking. If you want to ask a question, if you move your mouse down to the bottom, you can see a chat function where right in the middle of the screen, just under Dave's shirt buttons, and you can then type in a question, and then we'll and obviously at the end you can type in a question at any time you like. At the end there'll be opportunity to ask questions orally. So go ahead, Dave. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Alan. I apologise in advance. I'm probably a bit rusty at this, and I think I might have trouble putting on the images in a very, very kind of slick and professional way, despite some help from Alan the other day. So please bear with me if I struggle slightly. But thank you for inviting me along. I do hope that I'll repay your faith and trust by saying something which is interesting and informative and even possibly amusing in some way. But I apologise to start with, and it's the Greenwich Industrial History Society. I do go into Lewisham, so I'm not going to be chased out of the room, am I?
No, we're quite friendly with Lewisham people. We know it's
okay.
That's
fine. Just wanted to make that clear. I'm just going to do a bit of a preamble first. I'm not sure. It's quite difficult. I know people are kind of coming in from near and far. Some people have probably got a very kind of high level of expertise, which I now feel slightly intimidated about. But in terms of pitching it, this is a very kind of small corner of Greenwich, probably not even that familiar to most people living in Greenwich, and it's a very specialist subject, so bear with me. One of the good things about this is that it's all actually written down anyway. Some of you may have seen the article I did for Subterranea Britannica, as I say, early this year. It's last year. I've actually updated that, and I will be updating it again after this meeting. I'm going to send Alan a PDF with the most up-to-date version of this, and Alan's going to distribute it, I think, Alan. Anyway, I'll send it over to you, and you can.
Yes, I will. No problem at all, Dave. Yeah, I will.
So, a bit more context. This talk and the article are taken from a kind of larger document I've been working on for years. It's been work in progress since 2005, I think, since we arrived, and it's all about local history in Maidenstone Hill. Started off as a side of A4 because I thought the house is interesting. Here's something for the guests, and it's about 350 pages now. It's available. Anybody who's interested, just drop me a memory stick around, and you can have a look at it. But it changes kind of almost daily, and at least weekly. So okay, well let's. I know some of you will know where we are, and some of you won't. So bear with me. This is my first screen share exercise, so I need a drum roll. And that.
Move your mouse down to the bottom, and you'll see a little green thing in the middle of the screen at the bottom.
Yeah, I've got the images up, but not the one that I want, which is annoying.
If you click on share screen, it should, after a little interval, move on to what you've got on your computer. or you can press Alt S.
Right, okay, it's not a great start. Apologies, everybody.
It was working on the other day when we did little rehearsals.
Yeah, I've got all these open on my machine, but they're not appearing on the share. Okay, right. Let's go on to image 2.
We're starting to screen share.
Right. Okay. You can see that. I was going
There
to
we
give.
are. Yeah, you've done it. Well done.
Yeah, I was going to give you a location within London, but that one's not actually coming up for me. So apologies again. So this is the area that I look at. I've kind of defined it myself, set the boundaries. This is the Maidenstone Hill study area. For this particular subject, I've been also looking outside, particularly south of Blackheath Hill, where, as people might be aware, there was an awful lot of quarrying and possibly mining activity going on as well.
You want to just say Blackheath Hill is the horizontal
sorry, yeah,
east line to the south,
yeah,
bottom of that map.
yeah.
Greenwich Park is sort of up to the northeast, I guess, and you've got Greenwich South Street, which leads to Greenwich Station. Yeah. Ah, right.
Okay.
Oh, there you've got holes there. Great.
Sorry again. And it's
I've
disappeared
lost my
again.
picture. There we are.
Yeah. Okay. Again, apologies. That one's not coming up. Joy. Anyway, you got a brief glimpse of where we're looking. The study area I'm looking at is bounded roughly by Blackheath Hill, Greenwich South Street, Blissett Street, Point Hill. So it's a pretty small area of this corner of Greenwich, on the borders with Lewisham. Now, again, statement of the obvious, but I say mining and quarrying. Again, statement of the obvious. These are open workings and mining, working below ground. We have both of them in the area. We had both of them in the area. Again, bit of status of the document. It's always comes with a caveat. To the best of my knowledge, this is accurate and pretty complete. However, if anyone knows different, if anyone has got anything to add or has spotted any errors in there or disagrees with some of my interpretations of some of the evidence, please let me know. Be very happy to talk through. Not now, after the meeting, maybe. In terms of sources of information, if you've seen any of the articles that I've done, or the updated pieces, you'll see passing reference throughout. I deliberately don't acknowledge all my sources, otherwise there'd just be a huge list of them. So just quickly, main sources in terms of this: Morden College Archives, New Cross Turnpike Trust Archives, which are kept by Kent County Council, British Newspaper Archive, Ancestry website, British Geological Survey, and National Archives. And I was then going to put another image up. However, that one is not appearing either, so not quite sure what's going on there. Apologies again. Anyway, let's move on. In terms of the structure, I'm going to look at an overview, then going into a bit of detail. I want to look at some of the human aspects of this to try and bring it to life to a certain extent, which is slightly difficult given the period we're looking at. And then I want to look at briefly at the some of the legacy of the mining and quarrying in the area. Okay, let's first of all start off with the overview. It's not obvious today if you're walking or driving through the Maidenstone Hill area what its history has been. It looks like a pretty kind of normal London suburb where nothing particularly exciting has happened over the years or interesting. However, for a period of the Maidenstone Hill and around, for a period of up to 100, at least 170 years, let's say, up to the middle of the 19th century, this was a hive of industrial activity with large amounts of material taken off Blackheath Hill and Maidenstone Hill and taken off to various places in the region and beyond. Vast amounts of stuff were taken out, and actually today there are one or two signs that you know what has happened, but most of it's been covered up, and it's always a regret to me as a kind of someone who's interested in history that we lose all of these. There are no kind of interpretative facilities. There's lots of stuff in Greenwich on Greenwich Hospital and Maritime Museum and the history of royals and what have you, but you know, looking at some very important early industrial activity, it's not there. But anyway, I hope you know my record of it makes some sort of contribution towards that, remembering what has happened. So Maidenstone Hill, as the name suggests, was originally a topographical feature that had no sort of set boundaries. It was just effectively the slope coming down from what is now the point. From a topographical feature, once the area was started to become built up, it was referred to as a neighbourhood, and now it's just a road. But at least we've maintained the name, which is something. Similarly with Blackheath Hill, started off as a topographical feature, and now it's just a road. Anyway, if we go back to the earliest record that I'm aware of, and again, somebody else might be aware of other things here. As far as I can make out, the earliest records of extraction in Greenwich and Blackheath relate to chalk and lime burning, date from the 15th and 16th centuries. No, beyond the name Greenwich or Blackheath, there seems to be no reference to any kind of more specific location. Could have been on Maidenstone Hill. I don't know. Now, the first specific mentions of Maidenstone Hill as an area for extraction of minerals, if you like, dates back to 1677, as far as I can find, and generally this is, I think the earliest one relates to a William Steers, who was a lime burner's oft-quoted example of him kind of undermining the King's Highway through his digging holes in the ground and being fined for it. More about the Steers family later on, because you might be aware that there's actually three generations of Steers doing chalk quarrying and lime burning. They've run in the family. It is actually useful that they did commit quite a lot of offences, because that meant it was recorded. So people like me and other kind of people interested in history have got that record. However, up to 1700, the information from the late 1680s is actually quite general, and it lacks detailed descriptions and detailed maps. We have to wait until 1699 before we start to get some much more accurate recording of what was going on in the area at the time. And this date, 1699, Maiden College bought part of the manor of Old Court from the reigning monarch. They thought it actually included Maidenstone Hill. Turns out it didn't, and more of that later on. But the college, for those who don't know, those from further afield, was a charity founded by Sir John Mauden in 1695. It's based in Blackheath. It's still there, and it's still providing residential care. Now, at this point, I have to say that it's thanks to Mauden College not only for actually recording all this information, but for preserving it and curating it. And Elizabeth Wiggins, the archivist over there, deserves special thanks for a lot of this. So name check for Elizabeth if she's managed to tune in. Thank you.
She is, yes, according to my...
okay, good stuff. So yeah, the college introduced a very systematic way of recording leases, but they also started to put a lot of information in there because they really needed to keep the errant people like the steers under control, and they didn't want any more transgressions. So we have a whole series of 18th century and 19th century documents relating to Maidenstone Hill. If anyone's actually tried to look through those, it can be a bit of a struggle, but there is a lot of information in there which hopefully I've managed to, over the years, transcribe the most important bits. But anybody else who's found something that I haven't, please let me know. Now, let's have a look. The leases granted by the college date from the early 17th century, and they relate to quarrying sand, gravel, flint, and chalk. And interestingly enough, and notably, there are no leases there for mining, and they're quite clearly in one of the leases that they didn't want any kind of galleries driven into any of their land, probably for the obvious reason that it would make it unstable and unusable and less valuable. Now, the leases also, again, it's kind of interesting to go through these. They also included requirements and methods of working and site restoration, which was actually quite progressive. Probably very self-interested, so because they would want the land restored so they could do actually something else with it before, after all the minerals were extracted. As well as detailing the length of the agreement and the area covered, they specified, in the case of chalk quarrying, they specified the number of lime kilns that were to be, or the maximum number of kilns that were to be allowed on each quarry and each plot. They also specified the size of the maximum size of the kiln. Now we don't really know very much of the details of they look like. However, Magdalen College specified that on their land they should be, I think, 17 foot 6 inches maximum height. Pretty big, actually. It would stand out, I think that's 5.3 meters. I worked that out at. They also, again, I've always been on a learning curve here, and they specified that something called Cally, that's Cally, should be used to backfill the pits created by quarrying. Now, I put that in my document saying I have no idea what this means. However, I did find out subsequently that the word uncallowing is the process of taking off all the stuff that you don't want, putting it in a pile so that you can get to the valuable stuff. I don't know whether anybody else knew that, but they obviously knew more than I did at that point. So the earliest lease I could find for quarrying in that area, that's chalk, and it's for a Thomas Steers, and he was one of the Steers. What would you call it? Steers family, second generation. He was William Steers' son, and he worked with his mother, who was a widow at that time, called Hester Steers. Now, I'm pretty sure that they didn't actually go and spend much time on the ground down there. I think they probably, I know some of them were kind of absentee owners. They probably sort of popped down there every so often, but I think they probably got other people to do the dirty work for them. But that's partly speculation because we don't have that information. The Steers had a lease already when Magdalen College took over in 1699. However, that was not a legitimate lease and had been contested by the Crown, who were the previous owners. So Magdalen College had a lot of regularisation to do with the previous lessees who were operating probably not legally. So there's probably a lot of bureaucracy going on there. But again, the great thing about that for researchers, historians, is that it's all written down. Property disputes, fantastic for us because lots of stuff written down and lots of maps as well, saying what you own and what you don't own, or what you think you own and what you don't think you own. Shortly after, leases were actually granted on the Maidenstone Hill by Magdalen College for building. So that took place from 1731, and it looks as though they started building, they started leasing plots for building around the edge of the site, where the land was kind of a bit more suitable for that sort of thing. So at one point in the early 18th century, you had a mixture of housing and quarrying on the edges and in the centre of the site. It was probably a pretty horrible place to live, imagine in those days, but I think standards were not what they are today. So anyway, let's move forward slightly to 1751. This is the date at which the Crown said to Magdalen College, hold on, Maidenstone Hill estate, it was not part of the Manor of Old Court that you thought you'd actually bought off us. It's actually part of the Manor of East Greenwich. So that started a very long dispute between Magdalen College and the Crown, which was finally settled by an Act of Parliament in 1771. And it's likely that once this dispute started, 1751, that was probably the point at which all legal extraction of stuff from Maidenstone Hill actually ceased. There was some illegal extraction that went on after that. We know. Certainly, Magdalen College didn't grant any more leases, I think, for anything between 1751 and 1760 odd. So yeah, so the 1771 Act of Parliament, amongst other things, this forbade any mineral extraction on Maidenstone Hill at all from that date. Also forbade any development on what today is the point. It was meant to be kept as a public open space, which is quite progressive looking. So, a sec. Yeah, illegal extraction. It was reported that sand, gravel, shingles, whatever that was, I assume it's something to do with shingle, and ground, in inverted commas, reported up to the middle of the 19th century. There's a quote from one of Magdalen College's lessees. It's a bloke called Stephen Holloway, who was a linen draper from Southwark, but he leased property down here as well. This is from 1817, and he says, "The point is so totally neglected and left to the mercy of the public, the lower orders of whom steal away day and night, not only in barrows, but cartloads of it." And I think he was referring to people from North London when he talked about lower orders, but I could be wrong. He's also quoted in 1820, and this is referring to the land that 133 Maidenstone Hill is built on. This is where our houses are effectively. He owned this site, which at the time was apparently former gravel pit, but had been converted to cattle pasture. He also owned or leased the property across the road. He said, and he's talking about the site where I'm sitting today, "It's subject to the most disagreeable and filthy nuisances by night soil and brick rubbish, etc., being emptied from the top of the hill." And it'd be nice to say that that doesn't happen anymore. Possibly wrong, given what's been happening on the point over the summer period during lockdown. But it kind of gives you some. It gives you some idea that the place might have not been the most kind of pleasant part of London to live in. But yeah, it's a lot better now. I'm pleased to say. Once the settlement between Crown and Magdalen College was reaching its conclusion, the college did start. They did start sort of leasing sites for building again from 1768. They referred to these, or at least some of them, as levelling leases, and the intention there was that because the hill was so scarred by quarrying and mining, that an awful lot of work had to be done to actually make the plot suitable for house building. So at that point, the kind of the hill had been transformed by God knows, at least 150 years of quarrying and mining. At that point, it started to transform again to something closer to what we see today. But it took a lot of time to actually do that. So again, it involved moving around probably large amounts of material again to shape the hill. Now, I referred to the land south of Blackheath Hill. Once extraction stopped from the middle of the 18th century on Maidenstone Hill, it was still going on to the south of Blackheath Hill, and had been since at least the late 17th century. It continued there until probably the 1850s. Now, anyone who knows that area, it's most of it's now covered by, I think, the third phase of redevelopment since the quarrying stopped. But the new estate kind of it fills the area up and gives the impression that it doesn't give an impression that it used to be a huge quarry. However, if you stand in there, you can see a very large cliff face to the east of the site, and I estimate roughly the site was about 6 hectares large, and there's a quarry taking mainly chalk. There is a record of at least 2 kilns down there, and again, we'll go on to that in a bit more detail later on. It's very finely done, and Maidenstone Hill, for the most part, must have been just a huge collection of holes and mounds. South of Blackheath Hill, it looks as though a giant stood with a very large shovel on the edge of Lewisham Road, scraped it across to the east, and then just sort of taken it all out. It looks as though it's very finely done. Of course, the reality was probably completely different. Just to round up this is just the overview. Just round up. You know, what did Maidenstone Hill actually look like? You know, early to mid 18th century, before the extraction stopped and the renovation started, if you like. Got a couple of quotes from documents relating to the 1680s. There's a reference to the Steers family again. A commentator notes that they had dug up every part of the hill and carried away, and that the soil thereof having been broke up, damaged and defaced in the most shameful manner. But also complaints that the Steers, this is from Greenwich Hospital, they've been digging up the water conduits on Maidenstone Hill, which have been supplying the hospital with water for a time. So it was a huge mess, frankly. Possibly the only untouched part was the centre of the point, and I suspect that's probably because it was too difficult to dig down from that point to access anything of value. But yeah, that's my kind of reasoned assumption. So we've got, as well as all these holes and piles of probably waste material, we have a number of lime kilns for burning of the chalk, which is mined here. It's difficult to tell how many of them there were altogether because of the records, but we have at least 3 kiln sites across Maidenstone Hill. There could have been more than 1 kiln at each of these sites. It's not clear. As mentioned just short time ago, we have at least 2 kilns down south of Blackheath Hill, east of Lewisham Road, and up to 6 kilns south of Blackheath Hill, west of Lewisham Road. So a lot of these structures, which would have been churning out all sorts of toxic gases, flames, smoke, and God knows what else. So again, it would have been, along with everything else you would have found in the early 18th century, probably a fairly unpleasant place to live and work. There's no paintings of the area in that time, I'm afraid, not surprisingly, because it probably wasn't the prettiest place in London. Again, I want to just kind of try and give an impression of what the area looks like. And I see on my screen one of the photos that I want has actually come up in front of me, so I'm going to share that with you. I hope this works. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's working.
Got that? Right, okay. Is that filling the screen or green off? This is a map from 1772. Shows the Maidenstone Hill estate. You can see, you get a rough idea from here. This is Blackheath Hill, South Street. Come off up here, Point Hill, just here, Maidenstone Hill Road, coming down here and down here. Dabing Crescent and others kind of off in this direction. You can see from here, you can see the way the ground is shaded here. This is all stuff which has been cut away for extraction. You can see workings down here by Blackheath Hill where stuff has been taken out. And you can see here, this is labelled pond. This was a chalk pit. This was known as the old chalk pit after it ceased being used. Probably ceased being used about 1734, as far as I can guess. And it ceased being used, and of course nobody bothered to fill it in. So I estimate this was probably about 58 meters in diameter, and possibly about 12 meters deep. And the routeway ran in off Blackheath Hill here, so that would have been driven down to the pit level, and there was at least one kiln in there. So it was a huge hole by anybody's standards, and that was later gradually filled in, became filled with water, as you can see here, and it was later filled in, actually built over. Now, this is now the junction of Maidenstone Hill and Blackheath Hill, and there's a description before this kind of drainage ditch had been built. There's a quote here from 1839. It says, "The lane at the lower side of Maidenstone Hill is very narrow and winding and occupied as to a considerable portion by a wide, deep and offensive open ditch or drain." And again, you know, it shows you it wasn't the nicest place in the world to have a house. It was all looking pretty bad. But I'm going to leave the no, I'm not. Sorry. Again, we have from 1797, again, to give you some sort of idea, there was a collapse in the road somewhere along here. It's not sort of specified where. This is from the New Cross Turnpike Trust records. A collapse in the road revealed a tunnel which was 4.8 to 5.6 meters wide, and an average of 3.7 meters high. So that possibly could have been old workings, could have been a mine. However, they record that they found it and they filled it in. No proper investigation, unfortunately. But the main task was to actually make sure the road was made safe, so you can't really blame them for that. There's also a reference 1776 from one of the lessees from Magdalen College, and it's not quite clear which of this area it refers to, but he says that some of the area is dangerous, and he says the cliff is in some cases 80 feet, that's 24.4 meters perpendicular height. So there is somewhere around there where there's a huge drop. I suspect it probably could be around here somewhere, or it may be the cliff face that's now located behind Trinity Grove, which would be down here somewhere. But anyway, now move on. We're going to talk about things in a bit more detail. So I'm being selective here. Have you can you see my screen, by the way, in front of me, I've got a series of images. Is there anything? Can you just see me, or is
You can see your map of Maidenstone Hill, and then
right? Okay,
a thumbnail of you on the right-hand side speaking. And now we just what the screen is full of you.
Okay. Oh, that's terrible. Yes. Here's another old thing you can look at then. Okay, I'm going to go into a bit more detail now. So, what was taken from Maidenstone Hill? We got sand, gravel, earth, chalk, flint, soil, and then mentioned in one of the documents shingles. I don't know what that is. Could be shingle, possibly another word for gravel, stone. I'm assuming that's probably chalk. Ground, again, could be just kind of general material that's been taken off the hill. So, I mean, why all this activity here? Well, first of all, it was the proximity to London and relative ease of access to there. This was apparently the nearest main source of chalk for lime for mortar to the City of London, and it went there to assist in rebuilding the city after the Great Fire had destroyed most of it. This is what I've read elsewhere in authoritative documents. That's not research I did for myself. It also very close to the grown towns of Greenwich and Deptford, and it was used there. And I know that through my research. Come on to that shortly. Communications. It was on part of the main road network, the King's Highway, as it was known before it was taken over by the New Cross Turnpike Trust, 1718. Blackheath Hill was used by, we know, carts which were travelling to and from Maidenstone Hill and probably elsewhere. It was also, Blackheath Hill was also used as a way, a route down to Deptford Bridge, where the material was actually loaded onto barges for transshipment elsewhere, down to the Thames and possibly onwards. I've got no record of where it was actually taken, just that it was taken down there. I assume it was easier to do it that way if you're taking it into London than to go along the road, which had been probably in pretty poor condition at that point, and not helped by the heavy carts that the lime burners were using. Okay, the other kind of obvious one is the geology. The Blackheath Ridge is the area where the point is today, the high part across the top of Maidenstone Hill and Blackheath Hill, much altered over the last few hundred years. In terms of the very, very simplified information from the British Geological Survey, which I highly recommend people look at if they're interested in the detail. From the top of the Blackheath Ridge, underneath the superficial deposits, bedrock goes as Harwich Formation, which is sand and gravel, the Lambeth Group, which is clay, silt and sand, and the Lewis Nodular Seaford New Haven chalk formations. All of these, Maidenstone Hill and Blackheath Hill and around, are actually very close to the surface, so relatively easily accessible for whoever wants to dig there. So I'm now going to attempt to share screen again, and ironically, some of the images that I wanted earlier have now appeared. Okay, we might have something here. Okay, sorry, I'm having an issue again here. Apologies for that. No, it's not coming up, and this is one of the most important ones as well. Sorry about that. Failure in technology. Okay, well, that map was meant to be showing people whereabouts I'd identified where the mines and quarries were. That is going to be in the well, it's in a document that's already been circulated. It will be in the document that I will forward to Alan. So again, apologies for that. It's not appearing in front of me.
That was all right on Sunday when we did a run through. Do you know what's happening?
It was. Let's have a look. Sorry, everybody, just bear with me. Can you see that?
No, sorry, no.
Apologies, everybody. Right.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's up there. So hopefully everybody can see that one. So that's what I've gleaned from all the records. So the general descriptions of the area suggest that pretty much all of this was dug over and beyond. All of it was dug over at one point or another. These are indicative locations. The only locations where there is actually a proper map are Blackheath Cavern, which you'll see a bit later on. Now, on that, it's kind of we don't know for certain whether it was chalk mine or not. There's ongoing discussions, but let's say it possibly was at the moment. There's also the sand mine in Diamond Terrace, which has been mapped, as Mr. Laguerre, who's tuned in, will know, because I think it was he who did the mapping in the article from the 1986 London Archaeological Society document. So this is where we're aware of what was going on. The dashed line there and down here and to the south of Blackheath Hill, these are where we've got what look to be cliffs, if you like, where material has been taken away in large quantities, and it's still, despite the changes that have been made over the years, it's still left a quite a big drop in the various levels of land. One of them's around the point. There's the one behind the undercliff block of flats. There's also the one down here, which runs behind Trinity Grove and Dutton Street. There are others which are probable, going down here behind Dutton Street, where there's a huge change in height, and certainly one of the most obvious ones. Again, it's down here, south of Blackheath Hill, in particular this side, where the cliff is no good at height. It must be at least 100 feet. That one. So that's as accurate as I can get at the moment. It kind of gives you an idea that this work's going to be scattered all over the place. Most of it, we just don't really know what's underneath. So when Alan says I could tell you what is underneath, I can give you some sort of indication, but that's one of the issues that we have not known. Okay. I'll stop sharing there again. So let's have a look at in a bit more detail what was taken from our precious hill. First of all, earth. This was used in construction work, and we know from the records of the New Cross Turnpike Trust that 110 loads of earth were taken from Blackheath Hill, which is probably a reference to Maidenstone Hill. This was used in the reconstruction of a Deptford Bridge in 1788. I'm sorry, I apologise, I have mentioned the New Cross Turnpike Trust. In case anyone doesn't know what that was, it was one of many turnpike trusts across the country whose purpose was the construction and maintenance of the main road network, and this was funded by charging tolls to the users. New Cross Turnpike Trust was set up in 1718 and ended in 1861, and its responsibilities included Blackheath Hill, amongst others, in what was then northwest Kent. Flint was used in construction work. We know flints from Maidenstone Hill were taken by the New Cross Turnpike Trust as well. 1729 for work on road repair. Other uses for flint at the time include flint glass as a security measure. Now, anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's sharp bits of flint that are embedded in cement on tops of walls to stop people climbing over. It was back in the day when I was a youth, there were a lot of walls with broken glass in. It was now I think security measures are a bit more kind of they look a bit nicer, but probably deadlier. Now the flint glass, we have it on record that the workhouse that was also on Maidenstone Hill that used flint glass on its walls to keep the residents in. Whether the flints were from Maidenstone Hill doesn't say. However, it would make sense. You could just walk down the road and cut a few up. Sand, again, used in construction works. It was combined with lime to make mortar. It could be used in glass. It's possibly used in a number of Greenwich glass houses, which were existed in the 17th century, I believe, although whether the quality was good enough for that, I don't know. Also, sand could be used for scouring and cleaning floors and for crockery back in the 18th century. There's no record of what Maidenstone Hill sand was used for. Now, again, fingers crossed, I'm going to try and share a screen. Yes, so there you go. This is the this picture of the this is a picture of the inside the Diamond Terrace sand mine. I pinched this from GIHS website, and that was based on, I think, sub-Brit, so acknowledging all my sources here. Anyone's interested in this, there are a number of other images there. Fascinating. It's the entrance is in the grounds to one of the houses in Diamond Terrace, not far away. I'm not quite sure which one, but I'd love to go in and have a look. So I'm now going, as I mentioned,
sandbags at the right hand side.
Yes, yeah. There's. I'd like to go in. I'd be slightly nervous because apparently there are kind of bricks and sandbags propping things up in there. So I might just walk down the steps and have a quick look and walk out quickly. But I'm still waiting for the invitation. If there's anyone out there, thank you. Right. So just again, this is one of the few areas of the Maidenstone Hill kind of wider area that's actually mapped. And this, you see, Mr. Laguerre is he's with us, and you can see his name on the bottom left hand box, and the well-known Mr. Pearman as well. And that was from an article that the two gentlemen wrote in 1986, I believe. So just acknowledging the sources. I think the image that you saw was probably taken round about here somewhere, but I don't know. There is speculation, and certainly in this article, about how old this mine is, but I think the guesstimate was anything between the 17th and 19th centuries. I don't think it's the exact age is known at all, but it's great to have that just around the corner and properly mapped. So there you are again. Yeah, a big pile of sandbags there. If anyone needs any sand, you know where to go for it. Okay, so yeah, so the next, am I still on there? Yeah. Loam, also taken from Maidenstone Hill. This would have come from the clay-rich strata. Loam could be used, depending on the makeup of it, could be used for brick making. With two brickfield locations in the vicinity. One was just probably to the east of Point Hills, a reference to a brick field in the late 17th century. There was also one to the south of Blackheath Hill, brickfield, which was working in the mid 19th century. And if anyone knows I think it's Morden Mount Primary School down Lewisham Road, brickfield was down there, since covered over and developed. Gravel, okay, a lot of gravel came out from Maidenstone Hill. One of the New Cross Turnpike Trust officials is recorded as saying that Maidenstone Hill gravel is the finest he knew, and so Maidenstone Hill residents can be really proud of that. And I've suggested to visit Greenwich. This could be a strap line for tourists coming into the borough as we get more and more desperate, but they don't seem to be that interested, I'm afraid. Gravel's not their thing. Now, we know the Turnpike Trust took gravel between 1741 and 1749. They record that in 1742, they removed 5,223 cartloads of gravel from Maidenstone Hill, and we want it back. These will be pretty small carts, but that's a pretty large amount of material, I would say. It was a win-win situation for the Turnpike Trust, because they could use it to repair roads all over the district. It also meant they took so much out that they could actually widen Blackheath Hill at the same time. So they were giving the thumbs up, I think. So there's another reference to 1817. Gravel from Point Hill was taken by the Greenwich Parish Vestry for local roads. There was obviously a small pit up there somewhere. Okay, let's move now on to probably what was the most significant and important mineral extraction. It's chalk and lime burning. Now, certainly this was the one that was the most intrusive, partly because it seemed to take more material out of the area than any of the others, but also the process for creating lime out of burning chalk is a pretty intrusive form, unpleasant and dangerous. And this was done on site. And I've mentioned already the number of lime kilns around the area. If you're looking at things like gravel and sand, that generally has to be kind of sieved and washed before it's used. But that's not that intrusive, and it's not, as far as I'm aware, a particularly kind of unpleasant process unless you're actually doing it yourself. But chalk extraction and lime burning was a different kettle of fish. Now, let's see. So, if again, and it's probably one that's left its mark. And I mentioned earlier on the cliff faces behind Trinity Grove and Dutton Street. You can still see those, and the very large cliff face over the south of Blackheath Hill. That's mainly due to the extraction of chalk. They would have taken other substances as well, but chalk was the material that they were after in those areas. Also had a very high profile because of the illegal activities of the chalk extractors and lime burners, and they got a fairly bad reputation from all of this. And unfortunately, it had a kind of relatively high death and casualty rate, which will come on to a little later on. So let's get back onto a screen. Bear with me. Sync blue. This is actually an old photo. It's 1965, but this is one of the clearest I could find. This is looking. Hopefully, a lot of you will know the area. This is looking eastwards. Blackheath. This is looking across Lewisham Road. In the distance, you can see a big kind of white shape there. That's the chalk cliff, which is just to the south of Blackheath Hill. I did go out recently and try to take some photographs of how it looked today. Unfortunately, there's so much building work going on down there and hoardings. I just wasn't able to get a clear shot. This gives you some idea of the sort of scale. These flats here date from I think 40s or 50s. Those have now been knocked down, and the new estate is going up. But it does give you an idea of the size and scale of that. Ooh. Okay, so again, the importance of chalk extraction and lime burning did actually lead to making it made its mark on the local area through local names. The settlement, which is clustered around the junction of Blackheath Hill and Blackheath Road, it was known as the Lime Kilns from the late 1680s to as recently as 1855, by which time it's actually been absorbed into the rest of Greenwich. Most people, local people, probably know that Greenwich South Street was known as Lime Kiln Lane. However, Blackheath Road was also known as Lime Kiln Road at one time, and Blackheath Hill was also known as Lime Kiln Hill. It's just unfortunate all those have now gone on. Unfortunately, it would have been nice if at least one of those could have been kept to remind us about what had gone on in the area.
Lewisham still has Loam Pit Vale, of course. So
it does. Well, that's right. And if you look at the area around there, you've got I think there's Rock Road, there's Overcliff, Undercliff, I think Fossil Street or something like that. It's kind of quite a nice reflection of what used to go on there. But I did find something. I'll show you at the end. It's better than nothing, but at least it's there. Now, I want to talk a bit about lime burning and kilns. I'm sure some of you probably know quite a lot. Some of you probably don't. Given it's such an important industry locally, chalk extraction and lime burning has been going on in the UK since Roman times. I understand kiln design has changed very little, or it changed very little until the industrial period in the later in the 19th century. Essentially, kilns were mostly temporary buildings which were erected as the need required, built of stone or brick. Again, I referred to Magdalen College requirements previously. Kilns should be a maximum of 17'6". That was on their land. We're not sure how big the ones were on other lands, but they were all built to very similar designs. So essentially, the rock went in at the top, the fuel went in at the bottom. It was set fire to, as either wood or coal, and the finished product and the burnt ash was taken out of the bottom. That's a very simplified version of what went on, but essentially they were actually very simple structures. They could be single, they could be clustered, they could be freestanding or built up against a bank. Two main types of flare kilns and draw kilns. Flare kilns being single load, which would then be replaced after the lime had been produced, or draw kilns were generally ones which were continuously operated. So finished product was taken out, fresh product was added. These kilns would, when they were operating, would operate 24/7. They'd operate round the clock until the process was finished, and then that made them dangerous during the night as well as during the day. So relatively cheap and easy to build, and quite often instead of dismantling them, people operators just leave them. And in fact, the country is dotted with kilns all over the place. None of our local kilns were left, probably because the land was required for something else, mainly housing development. So unfortunately, I have no record. I've got here this is an image of the flare kiln. As I say, we don't know what the local kilns look like, but they're all a very similar design. So you see the hole at the bottom where the ash was taken out and finished product, and the hole at the top where it was vented and the stone, the chalk or the limestone was put in there. This image, which was historic England, kind of based on a much older one, tends to romanticize it, and it's not really. I wouldn't exactly encourage anyone to take a career in lime burning, but there you go. So for those who are chemically minded, and this is a bit of a learning curve for me as well, lime burning process, it uses calcium carbonate, which is generally either chalk or limestone, but apparently in the past things like seashells and eggshells have been used to supplement. Any form of calcium carbonate can be used. This has to be, the temperature has to be raised to a minimum of 900 degrees centigrade, possibly a bit more, and that's pretty hot. You wouldn't want to go very close to that. Once it reached the 900 degrees, that actually produced quicklime, which is calcium oxide and carbon dioxide gas, which was vented off. Water could be added to the quicklime to produce slaked lime, which was calcium hydroxide. I've got the chemical formula here, and they're in my other document for those who are interested. That was probably the most important for slaked lime, certainly for construction. That the slaked lime could be combined with sand for mortar. It could also and water should be added as well. Sorry. For plaster, stucco used on the front of buildings, possibly the stucco that we've got on our building, Maidenstone Hill, lime wash and disinfectant. And both quicklime and slaked lime could be used for soil improver in agriculture, and agriculture, in fact, apparently was the main user of lime until sometime in the 19th century. That's burnt lime as opposed to crushed or ground lime, which is used nowadays, I read. But the main purpose was to neutralise acidity. There's no record of Maidenstone Hill and around that lime being used for agricultural purposes, but given the proximity of a number of farms in the 18th century, could well have been. However, we do have evidence that it was used for Magdalen College work in 1735. They were ordering lime from the local lime burners. Greenwich Hospital, 1706, which I think must have been when it was under construction. Again, ordering lime from the local lime burners. And the New Cross Turnpike Trust again, which was a great customer for Maidenstone Hill quarriers and lime burners. And that was in 1718. And again, the New Cross Turnpike Trust records the number of carts being taken off Maidenstone Hill down to Deptford Bridge, and were very concerned about how churned up their roads were getting, and were considering charging them a supplement for the privilege. So lastly, in that section, I mentioned Blackheath Cavern already, and the fact that it's possibly a chalk mine, but there's no definite proof of that. I'm sure discussions will go on and on, but it is one that is there today still. and it's one of which we have a photo from an expedition organised by the Greenwich Council in 1939. In fact, there are a series of photos, but I'm going to show you the one from an attempt to click on the right button. That would help. So, can you see that? Yeah, that's shown.
There we are. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, taken in 1939. That's the what was called the main chamber or concert chamber of the Blackheath Caverns. That was it was investigated for use as an air raid shelter in World War II, but it was decided not to use it, so it was closed back up. I do have a piece in my Maidenstone Hill document which covers the Blackheath Cavern, mainly trying to separate myth from fact, given such a lot of kind of speculation has been such a lot of speculation about it, some sort of fairly nonsensical stuff. But anyway, that is a genuine photograph, honestly, and it's one of the few areas, well, few excavations, if you like, that's been mapped. This is a map of the cavern. This is on a 1968 base map, but this area here is the cavern. This lies beneath the grassed slope. The point is round about here, and those of you who know, it's a grassed slope which kind of runs down in the direction of Blackheath Hill, and it's all under there. At what point this is going to kind of collapse in on itself, I don't know, but hopefully no time soon. So again, there's probably a whole meeting to be done on that one, but I'm just going to refer to it in passing. So I want to now just move on to the final part. You'll be pleased to hear the human aspects, try and sort of bring it to life a bit. I've already referred to a number of the lime burners that we're aware of, the Steers. The Steers family, William, his wife Hester, Thomas Steers. Thomas's son was called Innocent Steers, and ironically, Innocent was the only one who isn't recorded as making any kind of transgressions at all. So there's nominal determinism, possibly true, but they were active from the 1670s to the 1750s. They seem to have been based locally and in the city of London. Seem to sort of travel between the two areas. William was he was also a barber surgeon, according to his will, interestingly enough. I think the other two were full-time lime merchants and lime burners, as far as I can gather. Now, I did come across, we have an image for this. I did come across another character. This one here. Now, this is Sir Jacob Akworth. You probably all knew this, but I'll tell you anyway. He was surveyor of the Royal Navy and responsible for leading on the design, building, and maintenance of the English fleet. He owned a large chunk of land to the south of Blackheath Hill. I'm sure he didn't turn up like this every day to check his kilns. I suspect he didn't really spend much time down there at all, but he owned a large amount of land there, and he was a chalk quarrier and lime burner, which is confirmed by 1739 map, and in his will refers to two kilns being on the site, and it refers to the area as the chalk cliff. This is, bizarrely enough, this photograph, this portrait was painted of him in the 1720s when he was already kind of into middle age, but I think he fancied sort of just painting himself, having himself painted as a young child. So anyway, at least I have an image of someone who was associated with the area. So pleased about that. So what about the ordinary workers? Not much on them either, I'm afraid. I did find a record, parish records from St. Elfridge in Greenwich. There is a marriage of a Joseph Sauce lime burner, 1666. Doesn't tell you anything more about him than that, but it shows lime burning is going on in the area that day. 1726, there's a record of a Sarah Savage of Greenwich. She was a lime burner, and that's the first female lime burner I've actually come across. And she married a fellow lime burner and husbandman, William Marvel of Gravesend. So that was a match, probably fairly unusual. One of the interesting things about that is that this Marvel, who is a lime burner and husbandman, that was not uncommon. Husbandman is a farmer. It's a small farmer. Apparently comes in pecking order somewhere below yeoman. But given that lime was so important as a soil improver, a lot of farmers had a kind of side job as lime burner. So he would have had a kiln in one of his fields, which he would possibly use himself, but also rent out to his fellow farmers. So anyway, we'll be looking at several 19th century kiln workers, which I've come across in tragic circumstances. But first of all, just to emphasize, I mean, this is, again, it's almost a statement of the obvious, but kilns were extremely dangerous structures used for dangerous processes. You'd be harmed or killed by fumes, burns, both from flame, fire, and from lime as an alkali, which could burn you badly if it touched your skin. From heat, toxic gas, falls, and the general risks of long hours of backbreaking labour. Several local fatalities I've come across in the press, which were reported at various times, including people just, as the kilns quite operated often overnight, people would gravitate towards them for warmth and fall asleep, and sometimes fall in or be overcome by fumes. Not very pleasant. So I'm going to read you part of an article, the coroner's inquest from a newspaper of 1838, and this is very tragic, and I think we always need to bear in mind. It seems a bit morbid, but how our forefathers and foremothers suffered, really. It's also interesting historically. This is a coroner's inquest into the death of a George Bell, who was discovered in a burning lime kiln at Mount Nod on Thursday last. Mount Nod was a locality to the south of Blackheath Road and to the west of Lewisham Road. This is where up to 6 kilns were located at one point. so it's quite busy. It says it refers to Thomas Coster, a youth 11 years old, who stated that he was carrying chalkstone to a kiln where the deceased superintended and delivered a basket. Now, I read that, I thought, child labour, how dare they? It was actually legal to employ 11-year-olds then. Legislation had been introduced not long before, but you had to be, I think, at least 9. It was illegal to employ anybody under 9. So those are good old days, teaching people the value of work. So he returned with another basket of chalk, and he saw the deceased on the side of the kiln, took the basket from him. He spotted the deceased when smoke cleared and discovered him lying on his face over the burning lime. But don't forget, this lime burns at 900 degrees centigrade. Called to the brother of the deceased, who was at work in a pit about 90 yards off. With other assistants, succeeded in bringing the sufferer out of the kiln. The surgeon who was called found him sitting on a basket near the kiln in a state of stupor, his breathing much affected and pulse very low. He ordered some spirits to be applied to the chest to stimulate the lungs. He had attended the deceased up to his death on Sunday night. His brain was much oppressed, his pulse and breathing were at intervals better, but the convulsions were occasionally so strong that it had required 6 men to hold him on the bed. He'd totally lost the power of speech, and he had not the slightest doubt that the deceased came by his death by inhaling a large quantity of carbonic acid gas. There were no external injuries apparent. He'd never seen a case of this before. Indeed, it was one of rare occurrence. And it adds, the father-in-law of the deceased was killed on the spot 4 months since by falling into a chalk pit, and the daughter has now to deplore the loss of an honest and industrious husband, leaving her with 4 helpless children and in hourly expectation of becoming the mother of the 5th. So that's pretty grim, but it's the sort of thing I think we need to remember when we study history, along with the good bits. Now, the reference to carbonic acid gas or carbonic gas, this is a contemporary name for carbon dioxide. Whilst carbon dioxide is not a toxic gas in itself, if you breathe in too much of it, concentrated, it will kill you. So this poor guy was kind of, as the article said, he was leaning over the kiln, and he actually breathed all this in. Quite surprising that there weren't the other marks on his body, given the terrible circumstances. But I did try to find some more information about these characters, but I could not. Only the fact that the bloke who died was only 38 years old, and he lived in what was then known as Lotes Pit, which was just on the other side of Lewisham Road, so where the terrible tragedy took place. I'm also going to read this a little shorter one. This is a quote, and again, it's trying to give you an idea of what life was like. This is a description of this is the eastern side of Lewisham Road, and this will be in the area which was quarried, or partly quarried. It was known as the Pits, and that will give you kind of some idea of what it was like to live there. But this guy was the person who wrote this article in the newspaper was reminiscing from about 1800 when he was born. He said, the place left the impression in one's mind that at some time or other, a vast upheaving of the earth had occurred, by which the houses were knocked into all sorts of shapes and jumbled together in helpless confusion. Some were sunk into the ground, some reclining half on their sides, and others bending forward to embrace one another. The dilapidated appearance and irregular conformation of the whole forming but too correct an index to the dilapidated fortunes and irregular mode of living of their occupants. There you go. Happy days. So end that one. Sobering thought. A quick one to end. Mining and quarrying, the legacy. Again, this could be subject of a whole meeting. I'm going to share the screen again. Fingers crossed that the correct one is coming up. Aha. You see that?
It's just about to arrive. We've got the Dave. There we are. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Okay. This is a map I put together. I've done the cartography on it. I have to say, this is a record of all reported landslips, subsidences, voids found when digging foundations, that sort of thing. It shows you probably where the unstable parts of the area are, gives you a rough impression, and whereabouts the land is that possibly is most likely to collapse again in the near future. Again, that's just giving you a kind of quick idea, but you can see it's concentrated around this area. We know if you compare that to the previous map, the map 5, this coincides quite closely with the areas that have been mined and quarried. So it really comes as no surprise, that one. Okay, so let's share the screen again. We're going to, this is on there, the Maidenstone Hill, old. People have been, this happened a few years before we moved into the area, but for those of you who don't know it, this is Blackheath Hill. This is the A2. This here is in junction with Maidenstone Hill. This happened in 2002 when the road, I believe I've read the reports, the road suddenly collapsed. This was during the daytime. Very fortunate that no one was too close to it, and no vehicles actually drove into it. The road was closed off.
Well, yeah.
The road was closed off for several months. Again, you know, I'm relying on reports that I've read. 5 blocks of flats were evacuated just in case anything else decided to fall in. There are actually 3 holes there. The largest one, which is the one you can see in front of you, was about 9 meters long, 4 meters wide, and 4 meters deep. So it's a pretty impressive one. Now, one of the interesting things about this is the cause. The immediate thinking was that this was old mine workings. People knew the workings around here. it was the cause. There's something had collapsed and the road on top of it collapsed as well. This was Transport for London's conclusion. However, that was heavily contested elsewhere. If you look at the maps, this area possibly were mine or quarry workings. However, the road has also been widened, or works have been done to it. It's also been lowered, widened by the New Cross Turnpike Trust and others. All sorts of work has gone on down there, and we know that the very large pit I referred to earlier on, just up Maidenstone Hill, that drained off here. This is where the horrible foul ditch kind of drained off onto Blackheath Hill. There are all sorts of things around this junction which could have led to this collapse. It could have been a combination of all of them. It could have been none. It could have been just the water mains broke and kind of washed material away. But unfortunately, a detailed sort of archaeological investigation wasn't sort of carried out. But anyway, it was fully repaired, and it hasn't fallen in since. So that's a good thing all round. I have another one here, so I will shut up very shortly. You'll be pleased to know. This one here. Now, this is, I don't know how many of you know this. This is Trinity Grove. I will try and call up the location map, because this is quite an important one. Trinity Grove is here. The site you can see is this one on the corner. This area here, there's a huge drop here and around the edge of Dutton Street, which probably used to carry on around the corner. This is a cliff face which was created by chalk mining. We know it's pretty unstable anyway, because there was a collapse here at one point. However, let's go back to this is a lesson really for people who think they're doing the right thing but didn't in the end. This site, the area was owned by, or leased by, Maiden College. Maiden College deliberately left this site vacant, probably because it was very small. It was on the edge of a huge drop, which made sense. Somebody decided to build a house here without planning permission some years ago. This was retrospectively granted. However, it turned out that the rear of the house in particular was not built on steady foundations. A ground started to actually slide down the slope at the back. A number of ground surveys were done with boreholes, and it turned out that the rear of the house had been built on something like 11 meters of loose fill, which was, I don't know, dumped there kind of years ago, and it was mainly sand, partly compacted. So the only thing the owner could actually do was demolish it. It's now got permission to for, I think, 2 houses to be built on there. Obviously, the foundations are going to be a lot better than the last time, but it does go to show that you should actually do your homework if you're building in a place like this. One of the interesting things for me, anyway, which came out of one of the ground surveys. I think this was the rear of number 14, which is the one which is still standing. The survey found what they thought were the remains of two galleries dug into the chalk, which is not great news for number 14, but they referred to upwardly mobile voids. What that is probably the galleries. The roofs of the galleries are slowly falling in, and they're raising the ground level of the galleries. So they're slowly kind of moving upwards towards ground level. So this site here was probably, as well as a quarry, was probably also a chalk mine. No one knows how far these galleries actually go in, or how old they were. They probably date back to the 18th century, but yeah, quite useful. But for historians, but all of that actually needs to be put right so that the house is on stable foundations. So in recent years, any major development that's gone on this Maidenstone Hill area, boreholes have been put in just to test the stability of the ground. The great thing is that the British Geological Survey have uploaded all that information to their website. It's a kind of borehole page, pretty anarchish, but it gives you an idea of the amount of made ground in the area, so you can start to envisage what it might have looked like before a lot of material was moved around. But again, that's something for some other time. Okay, so the very last image, I did say I was lamenting the fact that was all the local names, the Lime names had gone, but walking around the area recently trying to take some photos, this is what I found. There you go. It's in the new development. I thought, I mean, it's quite nice to know. Chalk Hill's kind of shows you that there's a chalk hill there. It's a bit bland, you know, like perhaps, you know, carbonic acid gas house would have been a bit more realistic, but I think there's something there. But it's just a shame that, you know, at some point on the point there couldn't be some sort of interpretive board saying, look, these are all the things that happened kind of on or around this this spot. But anyway, I thank you for your time. I hope there's something of interest there. I will shut up now.
If you can stop screen sharing, then we can see the questions. That'd be great. If you've got any questions, there's a chat thing right at the bottom. If you move your mouse down the screen, right in the middle, there's something that says chat. That allows you to type in questions, and they appear at the right-hand side. I've got a question. Thank you very much. That was fascinating. And I guess local estate agents and developers are terrified that this doesn't get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's slow falling down the slope. One observation on carbonic acid gas and that poor bugger that died. Of course, it is about 50% heavier than air, so he probably just suffocated because it fell down. It would have been, all the air would have, oxygen and nitrogen would have floated on top of it, and it would have been at the bed of it. And he just suffocated.
I didn't know that. Thank you, Alan.
It's CO2, so it's got 3 atoms per molecule. Yeah. So 2 carbon and 1 oxygen, as opposed to 2 nitrogen or 2 oxygen. So yeah, so it's heavier, and if you've got any questions, just type them in. One observation, I'm going to be wicked about the borough of Greenwich. When I worked in Woolwich in the, so easy. When I worked in Woolwich in the 70s, they were far more interested in tourist information about Woolwich than about Greenwich and all the stuff that's in Greenwich. So the fact that they might well say, oh, look, this is the home of the best gravel in southeast London, entirely sounds logical to me. And I like the word, the name, the pits. Is that where the term came from? That this is the pits? Do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, there's the area was also known as Lotes Pits,
Right.
after Lancelot Lote, who was
Right.
a local lime. He was also a lime burner and brick maker. He at one time owned part of the chalk quarry, hence Lotes Pits. He also owned the brickfield at one point on the other side of the road. But yeah, I imagine saying, where do you live? I'm in the pits.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose the whole of London, I don't know, it would be interesting exercise for somebody to map at some point, surrounded by these sort of sources of chalk and gravel and whatever for building materials latterly and fertilizer earlier on, I suppose. Any questions? Anybody got to, and I will read them out, or just unmute your mics. So Mary says a lot of fields on the peninsula were called the pits. Right, okay. So Greenwich Peninsula was also the pits.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Dave. What else, if you can, Kim says, top of Hyde Vale on old maps is marked Hyde Cliff. Do you know if this was related to quarrying?
I've no idea. It wouldn't surprise me, but
Elizabeth Pearson seems to know something.
Yes, there was all the gravel extraction across the whole of the heath with such deep extraction. And yes, the top of Hyde Vale was one of the areas.
Which is, I guess, why there were so many deep holes across the heath as well. All that wasn't filled in with rubble in the late 40s. Excellent. Anybody else got a comment to make or a question for Dave? In which case, as it's 9:20, I will say thank you very much for a fascinating dig into the innards of Greenwich. That was really good. I enjoyed that. I didn't realize there was so many holes in it. And so I remember that collapse of the A2 because our kids were quite small. They were teenagers, and my father-in-law was, used to use that route to drive us backwards and forwards. And it was really awkward to have to go all the way around from the A2 to around Blackheath Village and so on. And of course, Mace Hill had a collapse a few years ago as well, I remember.
Yeah,
Mary.
It's basically holes all the way from Maidstone right the way down to Woolwich. Yeah. I mean, every site is an old pit or quarry of something. I mean, Maidstone Station is in a pit. But across the other side of Blackheath, where I live, at the end of Palmer Road, there's another pit. Across that, there's another pit. 3 in Charlton, all of the parks in Charlton, and then we come on to the Marion Worston Estates and so on, all pits.
Yeah. Yes.
The railway line from Lewisham via Blackheath actually goes through a chalk cavern.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
I shall, next time I'm on a train, I shall look at it with new...
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Right. Are there any signs of it, of the actual quarrying, or is it just been lost because of the railway embankment?
No, you can't. The railway is in a tunnel at that stage, but the tunnel goes through another cavern. The geology of Greenwich is absolutely amazing. It's yet another claim to fame for Greenwich.
Yeah,
Good geology and good gravel. Yep.
exactly. That'll bring the tourists in. We don't want them by that.
Right. Okay. Good. If there's any final questions, Dan Hayden says thank you. He's very interesting. He's driven past but never stopped. Well, maybe we should have a Greenwich Industrial History Society walk when we're allowed to do that sort of thing. And the weather is better.
I think that's quite a good idea, actually. Walk.
A guided tour of the quarries of Greenwich. Yeah.
You see, the important one is really Gilbert's Pit in Charlton, which has got some sort of national listing status.
Which one, Mary?
Gilbert's Pit in Charlton. It's a national site of biodiversity. They call it biodiversity, geodiversity importance.
Excellent. What treasures we're discovering. Thank you. Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dave. That's
all right.
Great. And at this point, I'm going to say good night because this has been almost 2 hours, so it's absolutely our longest yet. It'll be recorded. I'll be getting it off the cloud tomorrow from Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. And then when then I will upload it to our YouTube channel. At which point you'll be able to share it with anybody who missed or anybody else who'd be interested. So thank you very much. Thanks, Dave. That's been really good. Enjoyed it.
That's all right. I don't think there wasn't any problem with the technology. It's just that I couldn't get hold of some of those images. Actually, towards the end, I realised what I should have done. So
that's all right. That's all right. We're all learning about this. As we go. It's been
definitely
a 10, 11-month learning curve. Right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to say good night at that point.
Thank you for inviting me and thank you for organising. So
thank you. We have one in February, which we haven't quite announced yet, but keep looking at our Facebook group, Greenwich Industrial History Society, and it will say there, and we'll also invite everybody who was registered for this one. And then there'll be another one in March. And I can't remember what that is, but it'll be there on the Facebook group as soon as it's confirmed. And Mary, go on.
I'm negotiating with 4 different people for that date. Hopefully one of them will agree, but there are also people that the problems is people are sort of waiting to see what happens, I think.
I think we're going to assume it's going to be virtual, Mary.
I keep telling them that, but they're going, oh.
No, I don't think, we're going to have the liability insurance to get people in a small room in Blackheath. Right. And I've just been hearing that a very big conference and exhibition in late June, early July is likely to be virtual only. It's not in this country. It's going to go on till the autumn. I haven't had my vaccination yet. I'm not going to have it for another month or so, and then it will be another month, at least maybe 2 months before I'm immune, and a lot of other people will be behind me in the queue. So no, we're not going to be anywhere. We'll need to be looking at September, October before we have real events again. And actually, we get bigger audiences for these. We've got had something like nearly 70 people at the peak today, and we'll have several hundred on the YouTube version of it. So we never have had 170 people in that little room in the bakery. Okay, I'm going to stop waffling. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much indeed. I'll say good night to everybody. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you for taking part. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.